Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. I'm going to admit that I literally laughed out loud today when I looked down at my phone and saw the New York Times news alert that classified documents had been found at the home of former Trump Vice President Mike Pence. Honestly, it's starting to feel like a running bit at this point. According to a letter sent to the National Archives from Pence lawyer Greg Jacob, a, quote, small number of classified documents were inadvertently brought to Pence's home after he left the White House and were discovered after a voluntary search by outside counsel. Those documents have now been returned to the National Archives. Of course, those circumstances highlighted in that letter sound remarkably similar to the situation with President Joe Biden, who also says his team accidentally brought classified documents from his time as vice president out of the White House when he left back in 2016. Biden's team also flagged the government when the documents were discovered as part of a voluntary search and returned them to the archives. And of course, these searches are happening because of the larger Department of Justice investigation into Donald Trump's mishandling of classified and top secret documents. But of course, the circumstances there are very different. As we noted on this show from the outset of that investigation, accidentally retaining classified documents is not the issue. You never expect the best of Donald Trump, but also clearly this is not the most careful person in the world. Like, who's got the best document retention practices?
We don't know if maybe Trump threw a bunch of stuff in these boxes, didn't realize everything was there, and maybe they didn't. Maybe there was a good faith mistake here that can be explained away.
His motives, to me, remain opaque, and they could be the most insidious motives possible. He wanted to sell the secrets to the Saudis and the Russians, or they could be just the dumbest motives of vanity. Who knows, right? We just don't know what they are.
He would not be in criminal jeopardy at all, former president of the United States, if when he was first contacted by the National Archives, he said, come on down. You search the place,
yeah,
take anything you want, just let me know what it is, and hopefully I'll get it back from my library someday, and I look forward to working with you for my presidential library. And that's what a normal president who made a mistake would do.
Exactly, right? The thing with Trump is that after he became aware he had the classified documents, he obfuscated the truth about what he had, and he fought the National Archives, and it sure seems like he corruptly tried to obstruct the investigation. He said maybe the FBI planted the documents before pivoting to arguing the documents were his all along, justifying it all by saying that maybe he had actually magically, retroactively declassified all the documents without telling anyone, or that he might have just kept the material as and I have to quote him here, cool keepsake. So that's the clear difference between what Trump did and what Mike Pence and Joe Biden did. And that difference did make it very funny today when Trump jumped to Pence's defense on his knockoff Twitter platform, posting, quote, Mike Pence is an innocent man. He never did anything knowingly dishonest in his life. Leave him alone. Not exactly the messenger Pence wants at his quarter today, although to be fair, Mike Pence from 2 months ago isn't doing himself any favors either.
Did you take any classified documents with you from the White House?
I did not.
Do you see any reason for anyone to take classified documents with them leaving the White House?
Well, there'd be no reason to have classified documents, particularly if they were in an unprotected area.
An unprotected area like, I don't know, big old house in Indiana? Now, again, no one's suggesting Pence did this intentionally. It was presumably an accident during the haphazard shuffle of leaving the White House, which incidentally is the same thing that likely happened with President Biden and even possibly Trump. Fair is fair. When the Trump document investigation escalated, Attorney General Merrick Garland appointed a special counsel. When the Biden documents were revealed, Garland appointed another special counsel to investigate Biden. So now that Mike Pence has revealed classified documents under very similar circumstances, shouldn't Garland appoint a third special counsel? Let's ask Mike Pence.
I welcome the decision by Attorney General Garland to appoint a special counsel. If we have a special counsel reviewing classified materials that were found at Mar-a-Lago, we need to have a special counsel in this case, and that's progress. The handling of classified materials and the nation's secret is a very serious matter. As a former vice president of the United States, I can speak from personal experience about the attention that ought to be paid to those materials when you're in office and after you leave office. And clearly, that did not take place in this case.
Okay, credit where due. Gotta say, Mike Pence makes a pretty compelling case for appointing a special counsel to investigate Mike Pence. He's not the only one. Today, Congressman Don Bacon, Republican in Nebraska, said he supports a special counsel to investigate Pence as well.
Do you think that Merrick Garland should appoint a third special counsel to look into how classified material wound up at the Indiana home of former Vice President Mike Pence?
I think Americans want fairness here. You treat one like you treat the other. That's why Joe Biden now has a special counsel, and I think we're going to have another one here for Vice President Pence.
Okay, so that's a yes. You would support
Yes.
a third special counsel.
Now, I'm not a lawyer, but from where I'm standing, from what I've read, from what the reporting suggests, doesn't seem very likely the Justice Department would charge Biden or Pence. They found the documents voluntarily. They flagged the National Archives when they did, as well as the FBI. I think most people agree taking the documents was probably just a mistake, especially considering the government's track record of over-classifying information. In fact, it now seems plausible that, I don't know, every living president and vice president might accidentally have classified documents in their possession. I wouldn't be surprised if you got that news alert tomorrow. Now, of course, the difference here is how they respond. That's what Trump did wrong, over and over. He took the documents containing some of our nation's most closely guarded secrets. He refused to give them back. He fought the investigators. His lawyers misled the government of what he had. The FBI counterintelligence chief flew down to Mar-a-Lago to be like, please, bro, dude, please, just hand them over. No luck. It is the same corrupt intent and seemingly compulsive lawlessness that permeated Trump's entire tenure in American government.